Universal is on the brink of opening up their third big theme park here in Orlando, Epic Universe, but their teams at Creative have already moved on to the next big thing, which is Universal Studios Great Britain. It is a go!
Yes. We've been hearing about this for quite some time now. I would say about 2 years.
Yeah, the first inklings came out in December 2023, and it's been a little quiet since then.
Yeah, which, there's a lot that has to go on behind the scenes, right? Like, you're building a brand new park in an area that is currently somewhat empty. From what I gather, there's not a ton to do in Bedford.
Yeah. It's relatively close to the Luton Airport. It's strategically positioned north of London but south of Birmingham. So a lot of people are within arm's reach of where this property is going. And we're talking over 400 acres of land.
Yeah, so this is kind of crazy because right now if you look at the scope of theme parks in the UK, it is very Merlin heavy. I think that having a park on the scale of Universal in the UK is going to be a very big deal for all of those parks as well. Because right now, when you look at Europe, you don't have any Universal representation, but you have Disneyland. That's all the way in Paris.
And a lot of residents will take that trip down to Paris, but now they have something a bit closer to home. This is going to create so many different job opportunities. We're talking 28,000 in total, including construction, 8,000 in operation. I think they said that the workforce to put this thing together is going to be like 5,000 people at its peak. Like,
that's wild.
A ton of people to make this happen. And when they conducted surveys within the people of Bedford, 92% of locals were in approval.
Yeah, I said, not a ton to do there.
That is unheard of,
They're like, please.
I can think of so many places. Like, you always hear about, like, the residential towns next to a big theme park. Like, Knott's Berry Farm is a great example. They're always like, too much noise, But, like, 92% of people were like, yes, let's make this happen. That's amazing.
It is. The thing is, it's like a give and take, right? Because obviously, rent is going to go up in that area because it's going to be a more desirable location. So buy now, I guess, if you would like. But on the flip side, like you said, there's going to be a lot more job opportunities that will open up. Whenever you build a big tourist thing, there's usually always businesses around it.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll sprout up a whole bunch of new stuff.
Think of all those local hotels, all those different, like, big chains, your Marriotts, your Hiltons are going to start wanting to build up in that area to capitalize on this. But Universal themselves will also have their own on-site hotel, 500 rooms built into the theme park. So think about like what's going on with Epic Universe or Universal Beijing. This is going to be attached, giving you front door access to the theme park.
The way it's set up, instead of being like the backdrop the way it is at Epic Universe, this one's like kind of more integrated into the main street area.
Yeah.
More like Miracosta at Disney Sea. That's what I thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, how Beijing has it where you walk under the hotel as your front entrance. So this is the side will blend in with all the buildings, and you'll have your more production central, I think, on the right-hand side. Just immediately looking at the single piece of concept art that we have, the beginning very much reminds me of a Universal Hollywood kind of setup. And I think that is going to be very, very charming. It's very classic Universal. And we are going to do our best to kind of analyze this piece of concept art, but I think before we really do that, we need to emphasize that things will change over time.
Yeah.
I think about when Epic Universe dropped their first piece of concept art in 2019. If you take a look at it now, knowing what we're getting, there are so many changes that have been made. That first piece of concept art was kind of vague.
Well, I think that's on purpose. I think they want it to be vague, like what the IP are, what the different lands are going to be, because we don't want to, you don't want to give up everything all at once, right?
Right. Everything that was put in this concept art was for a purpose, because this is what they're going to use as their strategic base and, overall general ideas for the theme park. And then they're going to work out the details as things progress. And I think one thing that we also need to really emphasize is what we've been hearing is that they are going to try and make this park as different as possible from the ones in Orlando, because you have a ton of locals that will make that yearly or bi-yearly trip down to Orlando. So many of the people who would be visiting this theme park have experienced Islands of Adventure in Universal Studios Florida. So not only do they want to include some different rides, but also maybe different intellectual properties.
It was mentioned at some point that this park was going to be like catered IP-wise to the British people. So obviously Harry Potter is a big one. We have that at Universal Orlando, but, could be different there.
Yep.
There's also James Bond. You could have Paddington Bear instead of, like, DreamWorks. Doctor Who was one that you mentioned.
Yeah, there's a ton of possibilities, and we have no confirmation about any of these. Everything that was released in the news from Universal and all the outlets are posting about is very general statements about the park itself, not the intricate details.
Yeah, that'll come a lot later,
Yeah.
I assume. Because right now we're looking at an opening of 2031. So that's about 6 years from now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty on point with Epic Universe, I feel.
Yeah, and Universal Beijing had a pretty similar timetable. And so it's going to be very cool to watch this park get built from the ground up. I'm super excited. Go check out Jack Silkstone's channel. He's going to be doing updates from Universal Great Britain as it's getting built along. That's
so cool.
Yeah, so he's going to be right there on site. That's going to be the channel you want to watch. But let's talk about this concept art. We kind of mentioned our production central area. One thing that I will note before we move on to the individual lands is that you do not see any sort of city walk in this concept art, but we do know that there will be some resemblance of a city walk. So that's something to at least look forward to.
Absolutely. So starting down like the Main Street kind of area, like we said, it seems like it's going to have an old Hollywood feel. On the right side when you're walking in, that kind of, to me, looks like there's going to be some indoor stages. Maybe something like Born?
Could be.
Potentially, like a cool show or something when you walk in. I know we also have like the special effects makeup show, so maybe something like that. But like you said, gonna try to make it different from Orlando.
Yeah, I know at Hollywood they have like a Kung Fu Panda show there. So, I mean, it really could be any of those. If they wanted to do a style in Bourne, I would hope that they would make it more James Bond. Like, I feel like that would be so cool with that property.
Absolutely.
So, right in the center, we have a beautiful lake, which is very typical for a Universal park. Universal Studios Florida, Beijing, Islands of Adventure, Japan, they all have that. So we'll go clockwise around the park. We'll start off with the small little area right behind the hotel that to me looks like some sort of kids area.
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, like you have Paddington Bear, you have DreamWorks. I think either one of those would work. Yeah. I imagine DreamWorks, if they're trying to differentiate from Florida, then DreamWorks would be kind of like redundant.
Yeah, or they could do it better because the one in Florida was an overlay. Yeah. But I see a couple like small flat rides. You can see there's a building right here that could be maybe a small dark ride.
I don't think it's a show the way that it's shaped.
No, I don't think so either. But right behind it, there is a massive building connecting to our first big roller coaster. We can see 3 roller coasters in this concept art. This one right here is a huge ride, and the building that connects to it is probably the second biggest in the entire park.
Yeah, well, clearly when you're looking at this is like a partially indoor-outdoor roller coaster. So my guess is there's going to be some kind of show scenes going on when you board and then you launch outside.
Just a really immersive queue. Like, it just
Could be.
Everything to kind of, I feel like this has to be tied to some sort of IP.
I really hope there's a dark ride section. Like something like Mummy, right? Where you're going through at the beginning and there's all kinds of stuff happening and then
right. Well, what makes this ride in particular unique is that this is clearly some sort of shuttle coaster because we can see what appears to be a switch track and 2 different spikes. So what I'm imagining is that you launch out of the building, go straight up the spike, you fall backwards. Then you go through like this big overbank turn right here, and then you end up down the second spike. Now you're facing forwards again, you fall down and you do the rest of the layout hitting the brake run.
I think it's an interesting choice if that really is what's going on here. It seemingly does look like it is. Because shuttle coasters are not like the best for capacity.
Right.
At Great Adventure. But also like, Universal and Disney parks, like they kind of try to go for beauty with roller coasters, right? And like, I kind of feel like spikes aren't the prettiest to look at.
No, they're not.
So it's interesting.
And most of this ride is removed from the rest of the park. I don't know how much you're going to be able to actually see this attraction.
It's a big old spike. I think you'll be able to see it.
And frankly, the spike does look pretty huge. I wouldn't be surprised if it approaches 200 feet, somewhere around there. In terms of manufacturer, obviously we have no idea from a drawing, but my gut says Intamin. Or maybe Premier, but probably Intamin.
I'm going to say probably.
It seems like something they would do.
Although it does look like Mr. Freeze a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. Last point of interest for this little section is right before you get to the entrance for that roller coaster. There is a small stage, like right over the water. So that could be for like a nice little show. Clearly not a massive venue, but still substantial and worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like the one that they have at our City Walk. So maybe just like regular entertainment, just people playing music.
I was also thinking maybe that could be a seating area for a nighttime show. Like if they had some sort of firework or water fountain display.
That's not enough room.
I mean,
I don't think that's enough room.
I don't know. I'm sure they'll have some sort of nighttime entertainment at some point.
I'm sure they will. Next area, right off the bat, looking at the style of architecture here, like the buildings, it looks very Jurassic Park. However, if you want to differentiate from Florida, you really have to try here.
Yeah, so my gut says this would be Jurassic World exclusively, because at Islands of Adventure, it is still a Jurassic Park land, even though you have a Jurassic World themed roller coaster. So this is also where we have what is by far the biggest building in the entire park. So I'm thinking this could be Jurassic World Adventure from Beijing, which would be fantastic. How many people from the UK are making the trip out to Universal Beijing to experience that ride? Probably not very many.
Someone at home just went, I am.
Well, there's always going to be that one guy, right? The reviews from it have just been through the roof. So I would love to see one of these on that side of the world. And
that would make it different.
Yeah.
From Orlando.
Absolutely. It seems like there might be maybe a little canopy walk-through as part of here. You can see these two towers that maybe that's a Jurassic Park arch, or it even could be like a little drop tower of some sort, maybe a family-friendly tower.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I don't really know, but I also know the cascading waterfalls right here on the side of this building.
It's very Epic Universe looking.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That brings us to the furthest, back point of the park.
Like when you're walking in the thing that will be directly ahead of you.
Yeah, and that is our second roller coaster, and it is all green.
That's a big girl.
That's a big ride.
That is a really big ride. So, a lot of green in this area. You know, I always thought, maybe they'll go for, something Wicked related, but just looking at this, it doesn't really scream Wicked to me, other than the green.
Yeah.
So...
I don't know. It doesn't look like there's much that would relate to Wicked. The other thing that, I keep thinking about is... the Wicked movie just came out not that long ago, and we know that this park was in development before the movie came out, and so I wonder if...
they had to have known it was going to perform well, though.
That is true, but I wonder if the Wicked, planning, because they did say they want to incorporate it into the theme park somehow, but I wonder if that planning started after the park was already in development.
It's possible. But I also don't think it's a stretch because, Wizard of Oz has existed for a very long time, and it's always been a timeless classic. So, that area will perform well no matter what. Yeah. Because people love the characters.
I agree. And it is worth noting that they have left room for expansion in this park. I would say, in particular, it would be on the left side in between that big blue coaster in our Jurassic area, or on the right side after a land that we haven't gotten to yet, and the other side of our production central. So two big expansion paths, you could put in something pretty cool.
Absolutely. So to talk about the coaster specifically, it does kind of look like it could be a large B&M.
Maybe.
Right? It looks like it could be.
I also think it could be Mach. We know Universal loves working with Mach. I love how it does the helix over the water.
I agree with that. Another thing that crossed my mind is think about Celestial Park. That has a roller coaster that's not IP, and it's in a very green area. So there is a chance that this is a non-themed area, and it's just more remember that Universal said we're putting the park back in theme park.
Yeah. So
this could be that version of that, because you got to think a lot of the theme parks in the UK have a lot of nature to them. Yeah. Think about Alton Towers.
Yeah, Paulton's Park.
There's a lot of nature, so this could be an area that's not necessarily themed to an IP, and it's just pretty.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it totally could be.
I like that idea, and I also like the interactivity with the pathways. You're going to be able to walk directly underneath this thing. It reminds me of...
Please don't have necks.
Oh, well, they will. They will. It reminds me of what you have at Japan, right? So you can walk directly under Flying Dinosaur or Hollywood Dream. And maybe they'll go with the custom soundtrack concept that you have with Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit and Hollywood Dream. That could be pretty cool. Behind that, we have a huge stage. This is a massive show venue that this has got to be Waterworld. You can literally see the water. You can see the explosions.
A lot of water, a lot of world. Look at that.
I feel like it has to be, or something along those lines. If they want to adjust the theme a little bit, again, we talk a lot about like James Bond. If they wanted to make it some sort of, I really want James Bond. If I haven't made it clear,
I was gonna say.
I keep coming back to that. They could do something along those lines too, but my gut says it's probably Waterworld because a lot of Universal parks have them, but not Florida. How many of those tourists are going from the UK all the way to experience Universal Hollywood? Probably not as many.
Someone again is, I am! So I would say the next area that we're looking at is probably the most vague. There's not a lot to go on here other than a little tiny building facade that you can see that almost looks, I don't know if Gothic is the word, but I guess that would be the best term to use.
Well, it's not very colorful, and you can see the pointed roofs and everything, so it's very time period sensitive. I don't think it's meant to be modern day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this could be Harry Potter.
Could be.
Of some sort. It clearly does not look like Hogsmeade or Ministry or Diagon Alley. So if they could come up with something different, great, more power to them. I think that a Universal park in the UK without Harry Potter would be a little weird.
It would be very weird because that's like the Harry Potter
Yeah.
capital of the world. But they do also have the Warner Brothers tour, not that far away, so they'd have to do something distinctly different.
Yeah.
So like one thing that I noticed from the concept art is that it goes from like a paved path to like what looks like dirt. And it looks like it's still part of the land because there's a whole nother building back there.
Right, there's 2 show buildings.
Yeah.
So there could be 2 decent-sized attractions here.
So one thing is like, people in the UK, generally speaking, kind of like darkness. So I wonder if they're going to go with something that's a little spookier. Like if they're going to do
Yeah.
Harry Potter, what if they did the Forbidden Forest?
Yeah.
Like an indoor area.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, they're going to have a lot of indoor stuff because it's UK and like,
It rains a
the
lot.
weather is kind of crap. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a really cool way to do Harry Potter without making it like everything else. Like we've
Right.
seen when we did the studio tour in Japan,
Yeah.
they had a Forbidden Forest area and it
And
was
it's
cool.
In London as well. It's the same sort of
It's
thing.
okay.
So they could do like a Forbidden Forest in here. I would love to see a proper indoor themed section of here because we've seen how successful they are over in the UAE. And also Beijing has that with a Kung Fu Panda indoor themed land. So I think it would be a no-brainer to have that in some sort of sense at this park.
Could
but,
also do monsters too.
Right. I just don't know if these buildings are going to be big enough. Like, again, the biggest show building by far here is that one that we already talked about adjacent to the big green coaster. So, I mean, it is possible that that could be an indoor area.
It's possible.
We don't know.
And by monsters, I don't mean the same thing that they have at Epic.
Right.
Just using those characters because they're cool.
They are very cool, and that's a Universal staple.
Yeah.
That brings us to our last big area, and to me, this screams Minions, right? So every Universal property around the world has Minions represented in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
The last one to get it was Singapore, but they just opened up a whole land by it. Even Beijing, when they built that park from the ground up, they made sure to have a Minions land. This
Well,
is
it's incredibly successful.
very successful. People all over love it. It does make sense, and look at how colorful it is. That could be
Yeah.
like a super silly fun land.
I mean, that would make sense of the roller coaster.
Yep. Again, another like greenish coaster here with a greenish yellow.
I think this land looks enormous.
Yeah, it's very big. This is going to be your family coaster, right? It doesn't look like there's some sort of kiddie coaster here. I just see 3, but again, there could be one hiding, or they can make
The
an
kids will be
adjustment
aight.
later. If you look at the original concept art for Epic Universe, the werewolf coaster in Dark Universe was not there. It was originally a show venue. They made that change later on. So they could decide to bring in another attraction that we are not currently looking at.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to get answers about any of this for quite some time. Like, when we first got concept art for Epic, how long was it until we got concept art where it was clearer?
I would say it was a couple years. Yeah. And they didn't actually announce the full lands until like a year ago.
Yeah,
maybe
but
less.
everyone had figured it out by then, you know?
Yeah.
I'm saying that whenever they give updated concept art, I imagine there'll be more details that would be like, oh, I see something that indicates some character,
Yeah.
you know, beyond just us totally pulling stuff out of our butts.
Right.
We're
But
trying.
I will mention within this land, you can also see several pointed buildings directly in a line that to me looks like Bru's neighborhood. And so that makes me think the show building directly behind it could be Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, which we know, again, that they don't want to necessarily replicate a ton of attractions from the other parks, but I also wouldn't be surprised if there's Despicable Me Minion Mayhem.
That ride's not even good.
I know.
You know what they should do? Because there's a decent sized building. I would love to see them do like a trackless dark ride with like the minions, like where you're like.
That'd be fun.
You know, something like that. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I like it. But that brings you back to where we started. So that gives you an idea of Universal Great Britain. I'm excited for this. I will say that there are some things in this concept art that I didn't initially expect. You know, you kind of preconceive ideas in your head of what a Universal park in the UK would look like. And so it's interesting seeing like what we might have initially been thinking about versus what the teams at Creative came up with.
Yeah, so I was like kind of in between, like, is it going to look more like the studios parks, or are they going to take the portal idea?
Right.
I'm kind of glad they didn't, because like let Epic Universe have its moment.
Yeah.
We don't need to announce another portal park. I'm sure another one will happen eventually.
Yeah.
But I like the style that they went with. I feel like it kind of has like a classic Universal feel while being fresh.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing to see different points in this concept art that I'm looking at and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, It's not one of those things that you can point to and be like, that is obviously that. Here, I don't know if anything is necessarily obvious.
Yeah, it's like Universal didn't even let us like get through the opening of Epic, where we're like, dang, we have nothing to speculate about or
They're moving
get excited
on.
about. They're like, here you go, here's something else to be excited about.
Yeah, and that's on top of their
Okay.
kids park. The kids park is still happening.
Oh, yeah.
I know people forgot about that, but it's still a thing.
There you go.
So, anyways, let us know down in the comments below. What do you think of Universal Great Britain coming to the United Kingdom in 2031?
That's crazy
That
to
is
say.
so cool.
2031.
The first Universal ground-up park in Europe, because PortAventura doesn't quite count.
I would say, do you remember where everyone for a while thought that Universal was buying PortAventura back and that was going to be our Universal in Europe?
I don't know what happened to that.
I don't either.
I kind of wish it was still happening, but
I mean,
it'd be different.
Fine.
It'd be different from
It
this.
would be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still, you never know, could still be on the table.
Absolutely.
They seem to be like,
dude, Universal is on top of things.
oh yeah.
And I think it is going to be so beneficial to the other parks in the UK too. I know people are like, oh, Merlin should be scared. No, Merlin should use this as an opportunity to step up their game because, like, when a new park comes along, that's just more tourism, more people to pull from to go to your properties as well. So I think they should be excited about it.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, this is something to be excited about no matter where you work for. You know.
Absolutely.
So, anyways, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.